Joshua Tanrıöver knew were the 4 walls, 4 bland, flat planes, the farthest one with a heavy locked door and a single shutter. Some supervisors peered through that every once in a while, but often rarely with notoriety. Days passed, and Joshua did not care. 4 walls. All this for a dig. All this. Within the gray, filthy box, he had a few bundled clothes. At the back, a basin and a toilet with no windows. A bowl for eating lay on the right corner, often his sense of direction banishing him, and his bed to the other side. That was it. Only the gray, padded walls and pasty ceiling. Motes of dust clinging to every corner, nugatory and sterile. On the first few days, Joshua paced, occupying himself with a book he'd brought along with him, a boring travel guide to Syria and Lebanon. Since he hardly spoke to anyone, he quickly finished it. In the meantime, he did exercise in the penitentiary. Push-ups, sit-ups, mountain climbers, squats, everything he could think of to keep his mind going. They said after his injured leg was healed that it was essential to keep the blood flowing to stay active. He could not remember who said that, only vaguely recalled it had been important. He had nothing else better to do but eating, washing, and sleeping. Soon as the stale repetition became routine, he adjusted. Then, after a few weeks, he deteriorated into a state of boredom. During these twilight days, Joshua exercised less and less, feeling more fatigued. As the weeks went by, he saw no one. It made his anger seethe, because he'd been held against his will, unable to see any soul. His sleep patterns started to vary and rupture. It tortured him that he had no idea of the sun and moon. There were no windows. It would take him an hour or more of bleakness to fall asleep, feeling numb. And then he would wake up at some time he could not know, feeling like he wanted to be sick. This happened with the dread of being alone. What crushed him and slowed him down was that he terribly missed human beings and nature outside, and what they sounded like. Indeed, the only humans who ever came in were cleaners and those who replaced his food. They never glanced at him. He became to them an object, dehumanized. Justly so. Joshua had used many people in that same way. So, in return, they never spoke to him, and thus he spoke only in dreams. Fantasy. He woke up unfulfilled, desiring every day to sleep. Sleep was his desire. It never left his mind. When he dreamed, he envisioned a better future. Once his strength began to dwindle, he would pace and mumble in rambles all his knowledge to himself, teaching himself about his passions and the cultures from the west to the east, everything he learnt, with none to hear. After a week, guilt set in, lethally. It came without warning. It drained all the willpower out of Joshua. He could do nothing anymore. He gave up on reading, finding no interest. He'd quit exercising. He tried to speak to the occasional cleaner and the people that tried walking up by beating on the door. They spoke, but never to him. Soon it became ever apparent to Joshua that everyone forgot him. His leg and his soul started to hurt even more. He often would arch his head, shaking it, cringing at random failings in his life, all his miseries, mistakes, and actions, all his attempts of fraud. Groans slowly mutated into screams. His mind jolted in a desperate battle to stay alive. He would speak to his mind, slurring and yelling. He relived the worst moments in his life. He saw many possible futures, of what course he could be leading into from the actions he made, could have made. the anguish of knowing he could have done otherwise. Joshua writhed. Some people that did come along had an air of notice, but with cold, grim eyes, they jotted down notes saying his random fits meant a lunacy condition. Then the void came. Those times he could not move. In those times, he drooled, coughing with a cold, and crying a whole lot. He would tear up his book, the pages, flicking through them in a frenzy. He had nightmares, too. They were psychedelic dreams. Joshua had tried drugs before that were said to give such visions, but not recently. These strange, iridescent dreams were full of fractals, stars spinning and collapsing in on each other in geometric patterns. 1,000 patterns repeating each other in a fractal, filled with stained glass windows, combining and melting together. He saw himself being arrested in the Damascus hospital. Judd Pounders speaking to Shabiha guards. He saw visions of things that could come to pass in the future, of forests being denuded, of sea creatures beached in their millions, of seas turning into blood, of pollution destroying the ozone layer, of great fires burning the land, storms destroying cities. It was nauseating. The fractals and the patterns never ended. He tried to meditate why and how he got here, and how his misfortunes had culminated upon him. He had been so terrified when he faced the lion with the fire sword. He was chased at Damascus. His leg was shot, and at the hospital and the military base. He did not expect it, mostly, that the police would find him so easily there, dragging him into hell. It made sense why the American Marines could not do a thing. Joshua had trespassed illegal property, holy property, without a government permit to dig there. Fair enough. Joshua had been slightly too ambitious to uncover the cave of blood. Joshua also wondered if he hadn't been the only one caught. The other workmen and diggers he had may have been caught as well. Yet Joshua could hardly believe he had been caught. He felt numb about it. All his crimes so severe, he rightly deserved this sentence in a mental asylum. Lunacy. A state of lunacy. He sobbed. He wished he could see his family in the fractal dreams, and one by one cry on their shoulders and hug them for forgiveness. From a young age, Joshua came to the resolving conclusion that adults didn't have any idea how the world worked. He remembered deliberating about it. When an adult once told him to do something, he resolved within himself that it was probably best to do the opposite or twist it, doing it his own way. It precisely showed that he was an individual, not that it did any harm. Did not Disney say, "Follow your heart, wish upon a star"? Did not Descartes say on the same lines, "Cogito ergo sum"? I think, therefore I am. To be a rebel made kids individuals. This had been reinforced when a ghost, a fallacy but not to a child, floated around in corners at nights on misty days. Joshua remembered being stunned at his grandmother's house, which was haunted, hearing all the music and dancing and seeing apparitions of men and women in fancy dress and suits dancing with one another. Cabals, Comanches, and Baglamas played. One of the ghosts at the party, a friendly shepherd with 2 dogs on a chain, told him that only children could see him, because adults had been deceived by lies, turning the truth into a lie. So Joshua took it upon himself to change, to show his family how he could get what he wanted by making them think that he trusted and loved them. It only turned out to prove the ghost as true, and every man a liar. Irksome, selfish adults had no idea what they were talking about. So, naturally, Joshua sought the best alternatives to this world that required no toil, forging passports and checks to get by. Because of this ideology, he was able to amass millions of dollars to help his parents in Adana. By traveling the world pretending he was a pilot, an archaeologist at Patara, Myra, Ephesus, and Baalbek, a bouncer here and a lawyer there, all the while he learnt Arabic. Life became a computer game. It required shrewdness to trick authority, getting away with fake passports, saving fraudulent files from the police, escaping before being caught, becoming an invisible man. The ghost's wisdom, though, was not the wisdom Joshua wanted now. He beheld the four walls of cold confinement, coughing and hacking until his body trembled with exertion, knowing fully the weight of his wretchedness. He had found a name, not one he thought he would find in his quest for knowledge and deception. He found out what it meant to be honest, humble, and contrite. Now that ghost's advice, that demon, got him closer to death than anything. Go, my son. Be something different. Be something different. Go be something. Be something. Be dead. Waste. I need to come out. He fell asleep, and there he was a caterpillar. He squirmed out of his egg, and with an undulating body he crawled for survival. He fought, nibbling and munching on leaves. He ate and ate until he grew all fat, spun for himself a cocoon, trapped in the terrible trauma of clogging isolation and imprisonment. A massive, monstrous, abominable critter. Joshua woke up with a start with no blankets, his breathing rattling in his ears. He was no longer in his sleeping bag. He had kicked off the walls, tobogganed across the floor, thrashing so violently in his sleep he had made a ruckus. Joshua. Wait, was that a light? He had awoken the asylum? The neighbor perhaps could not sleep. For a minute, he considered the soul next door, and for a lull, he froze considering his egotism. The only world he ever knew was this cell. He loathed himself for being selfish and not being able to do anything about it. The faint light did not go away, however. Joshua. Someone knew his name. He started with a yelp, exacerbating coughs, his sore mouth. He faced the pink glow emanating warmth, showering dappled pools of light upon him. What? Joshua could only shudder. You are a very bright, talented fellow, a careful, timid voice sounded. Why did you do this to yourself? The roseate illumination smiled indulgently, it seemed. The four walls he had sweated and lived in flushed with its color, a splash of gelatinous orange and pink color, shifting, moving slowly, flowing flowery tentacles of a jellyfish that drifted lethargically in the silent twilight of the deep ocean. It glowed with the dappled rays of sunlight passing through the pelagic, sublime and majestic, relaxing to the eye, the soul, to watch the comb jelly ripple, undulating, expanding, shrinking, expanding, shrinking. Help me. I will. Help me. God will. Who? Then the jelly spoke to him and revealed to him a way. This new ghost said that it would give him the words because it would explain the particulars of selflessness, compassion, self-control, love, and justice. How do I know? How do I know if you are the same as them? Joshua rasped. The other ghosts. I don't trust you. I'm not a child anymore. The jelly froze and shyly said, I speak truth. The ghost told me, only children can see me. I am not a child. I've faced death. There is life beyond death. I am your spiritual father, and I've come to give you truth to set you free. Joshua stared witlessly. What? I'm going insane. Leave me. No one cares. I care. I am your spiritual father. Leave. What is your name, ghost? Nefer. I am a scholar and a seer of Yahweh. Let God be true and every man a liar. You have been burned by the fire of suffering, but affection is not against you. Judgment fire purifies anything that is not love. Is the fire permanent? Truth is always permanent. It will only be so when you willingly work it out in your life with trepidation and trembling. Amazed and pricked to the heart, Joshua bowed to the pure being of love behind those words, behind the angel. He bowed because he, discarding distortion, saw his individual toil and struggle. In this fundamental reality he existed within, Joshua had hope. And yet, who was this ultimate being who sent this spirit in its name? How selfless was this God? He needed reason to justify his objectivity with some revolutionary objective input. Nefer, I want to be unashamed. Don't worry, the spirit said. You will die to self. Die to yesterday and the past behind. The future is now in your hands. Soon, Nefer gave Joshua nourishing food. It looked like coriander seed, white, and the taste of it was like wafers made with honey. He ate them in ecstasy. Never would he have a meal again that tasted so glorious. Nefer then told Joshua about everything, from the story of God's covenant with humanity, the fruit, and the lies Joshua had believed. Just like Adam, all of humanity, he was rock bottom of the great exile from the Garden of Eden. The truth removed the scales of a shedding lizard from his eyes, and the wonderful excellence and the deepness of this Spirit's word. But even more than that, it had a hidden ideal principle that was the epitome of the ultimate reality. The real universal truth all cultures sought to comprehend, revealed to Joshua. A beautiful character ruled space-time, a complex, unified, unimaginable love, a cohesive reciprocal community of procurement and contribution. Strange, so strange. It was so ridiculous that such words, very old words, some of the oldest in history, would give him so much philosophical emotive obsession. Nefer offered Joshua the words to read. He had found something deep, a well of hope. But then that same word also killed Joshua, giving him nothing but misery, when Nefer recited aloud, I will make justice the line, and righteousness the plumb line, and hail will sweep away the refuge of lies, and waters will overwhelm the shelter. And the city has no need of sun or moon to shine on it, for the glory of God gives it light, and its lamp is the Lamb. By its light will the nations walk, and the kings of the earth will bring their glory into it, and its gates will never be shut by day, and there will be no night there. They will bring into it the glory and the honor of the nations. But nothing unclean will ever enter into it, nor anyone who does what is detestable or false, but only those who are written in the Lamb's book of life. But it was the final recitations of the Spirit which had Joshua lock up with surmounting discomfort, that it plunged him back into that numb darkness. the darkness in which to hide from sin. For if we sin willfully after that we have received the knowledge of the truth, there does not remain a sacrifice for sins, but a certain fearful looking for of judgment and fiery indignation, which shall devour the adversaries. "I have willingly defiled you," Joshua wailed. "O Yahweh, I have used people. I have sinned. Forgive me." "You're already forgiven, Joshua," Nefer, his spiritual father, said. "But I cannot stop wanting to sin." "Yes, you can stop. You must take responsibility of yourself now," Nefer pressed determinedly. "I cannot hold your hand forever. You can transgress no more. Remember what I taught you, what Jesus taught you. Never deceive again. If we say that we have fellowship with Jesus and walk in darkness, we lie and do not know the truth. You need to walk and be steadfast." "But I am—" "Listen," Nefer said. "Listen, Joshua. Your soul needs to be healed by the Holy Spirit. You never, ever dare to think of sin as an option." "Okay, sin is not an option. It should not even be enticing in your mind. Sin is not an option." "Yes," Nefer championed. "Bind the sin in the name of Christ Jesus. Yes! I only have one option. I only have one option. Truth. Truth." Suddenly, everything that had defined him shattered. He lost the foundation. Joshua wept bitterly. Was that what those visions were about? The environmental catastrophes and the burning cities? The whole world losing its foundation of meaning? The lies all being removed by a grand apocalypse? Nefer then told Joshua the story of the eternal God-man Jesus, healing the boy with an unclean spirit, who grinded his teeth, foamed at the mouth, trying to burn and drown himself. The story of the anguished father of this son taught Joshua what he could have become. He was the demented child. Then the father said to Jesus Christ, with tears in his eyes, blabbering, "Lord, I believe, but help my unbelief." Nefer and Joshua, they became the best of friends, laughing. So much alike they spoke for hours upon hours. It made no sense, but relationship had been the medicine he needed. "I shall master my integrity," Joshua giggled. "My God, I shall speak in spirit and in truth. I shall master my integrity. Integrity!" When the spirit named Nefer came to him to minister every day, feeding him the beautiful, life-giving wafers, revitalizing him, he said, "I got it just for you from the celestial city." Joshua almost choked on honeyed wafers full his mouth as he said, "It was real? The celestial city?" The spirit nodded. "All of it, and more. The blood of the king has set you free, and very soon these four walls will be cast down." 2 weeks later. "I am Judd Pounders." "Japwa?" "I am Judd Pounders." Just trying to introduce himself to these senseless Arab guards took forever. That man with a nose bent upwards and dull, plain brown eyes and an uninteresting complexion stared at him with scowling dowdiness. "Huh?" "The lieutenant colonel," Judd tried again, saying every syllable loud and clear. "From the USA, the United States of America. Yersh, atayat liruyat shaksma. I have come to see the inmate, Joshua Tanrıöver. Tanrıöver. Finally, light in those brown eyes. "Tanrıöver. Joshua Tanrıöver. Yes, yes." The Arab guards nodded to each other understandingly. "My God, screw Arabic, I need a translator," Pounders grumbled, irked. The guards let him in, unlocking a series of grating doors into the rancid asylum. Foul smells clogged the air. It made Judd curl his lip in disgust, slipping his hands into his coat pockets. All the noises echoed along these peeling, painted cells. It held gangs of young ducks, dopers, vandals, and no-goods, and obscene prostitutes with no better place than to be locked up in their illicitness. There were some missing teeth, groaning for deliverance. Others slumped in corners, drunken in a stew or a distressed lump. There were some rooms that were entirely sealed off with no windows but a thin slit in the doors. Christ's sake, how do people live in here? Is human rights even a thing in Muslim countries? He followed a man by the name of Amir down the dark, gloomy hallways, the sounds of lost souls with their footsteps sounding down the hall. It looked like some late 19th century jail. The ethical treatment of human beings was also not to be up to date either. Amir arrived at a small junction with 3 doors on either side, walls all made of steel and iron. Perfunctorily, he grabbed a stool, sat it down in front of the door before Judd, then went on to inform him in broken English to sit here, not open the door, and watch. Opening a small hatch, Amir said that one could only pass items through it. Then, after the awkward tutorial, Amir left unaccounted. Judd sat on the stool. He grumbled, looking around, not knowing what he had to do. Wait, look in the hatch? Syrians had strange manners. He looked around, saw only a single guard watching him from afar. He barely looked awake, so Judd got up, opening the small viewing hatch. "All right, this is crap. It's freezing in here, you bloody yo-yos." What he saw behind the door shocked him. There was a man with so much matted hair, like snarled ropes writhing in a crown above his head. Judd recoiled. He struggled to identify the prisoner, and for a second he thought he had been led to the wrong cell. The man with the beard sat with a humped back, coughing, sniffing with a runny nose, eating wafers. "Yeah, that's Joshua. So, I wonder if you guys have any idea about human rights, eh?" Judd uttered as he looked around to the guard. There was no reply, so he gave up. "Joshua, you are hanging in there? I've signed a waiver for you. When I found out what you did, everyone in the Marine Corps was furious and did not raise a single finger to help you. But Jesus Christ, I could not stop thinking about how the police tortured you like that in the interrogation room. It was not right. I felt led to do this. Listing all your crimes, all in which was signed by the court, the Marines had no hand in what you did. So that meant I could sign you a waiver. You were so goddamn good at lying to us, though. You nearly got us sued. Anyway, you have any parents, Josh? Nothing? No income? Well, that $1 million is down the drain now, isn't it? Well, today's your lucky day, son. I got through with a parole." The man looked up at the word lucky. God almighty, those eyes were purple rings, morbid caverns sunken and haunted, full of obsessive craving. His neck and cheeks were deathly pale, scumbled with an impending beard. Judd only stared, absorbed by the disturbed face. "Well, I think it's time we let you out to see the sunshine. Come, you are officially under my guardianship until further notice." Judd cleared his throat. "Josh, you're free." A lopsided smile crept across Joshua's face, rendering his visage even more shocking.